Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our last episode of Into Miyazaki's World. This is Betty.
And hi, I'm Avery.
Yes, and because this is our very last episode talking about Miyazaki's movie, so I'm going to keep it very short so that we can save time to our reflection at the end of everything we did so far in the episode, in the podcast in general. And today we're going to discuss the very first movie of Miyazaki's Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro. And spoiler disclaimer giving in advance for you all who plan to watch the movie. We will spoil many details of the movie. So if you don't mind and want to listen, I would just jump right into it and give it to Avery.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the Castle of Cagliostro, which I actually didn't write down when it came out. Did you write that down, Betty?
I think it's 1979. I'm pretty sure.
1979.
It's my mom birth year.
Oh, yeah. 1979. So yeah, for this episode, it will be a little different. As she said, we're going to discuss the movie, and then we're actually going to move into some information about Miyazaki's early life and his career and the founding of Studio Ghibli. So we're very excited for that. And then we'll just kind of do, like an overview reflection and discuss our rankings of all the movies we've watched so far. But if you can't get enough of us, don't worry, we will be back next school year. We'll be going beyond Miyazaki's world to look at some more Ghibli films. But for sorry, I got distracted. But for our film of focus today, like Betty said, it came out in 1979, and so I didn't really write a formal synopsis for this film. It's kind of very simple. The character Lupin III is a very popular manga character. The best way I could explain this franchise of Lupin III to an American audience is it's kind of like Batman. Different directors, take a turn to create a movie on Lupin III in their own style. So, he's this spy guy, and he basically just does a lot of heist. Is that the right word, maybe? Yeah,
Yeah.
heist, capers for money. So Miyazaki's film follows him and his companion as he actually takes on a more honorable heist where he ends up actually not fixating on the money but saving a princess. So it's a bit of an interesting tale. We kind of have this weird mix of 60s like spy mystery Scooby-Doo vibes and then also fairy tale because we do have a princess and she's trapped in a tower. But yeah, interesting film. Where should we start for this one?
Yeah. So I think maybe we just stick to our tradition talking about the world building. Because for me, this movie just very different from the style that Miyazaki just followed throughout the timeline he worked at Studio Ghibli and beyond. The art style just very giving me a 70s 90s vibe, obviously, but not in Japan, more about in Western culture. And oh, this time I watch it in dub and I love it so much because it's give me about American funny cartoons. So I love it so much. And yeah, there's a lot of smoking scenes. And for me, I think it's very rare in Miyazaki's movie because the one I can recall is just House Moving Castle of the Witch of the Waste. She smoked at home and in The Wind Rises.
I was gonna say, yeah, in The Wind
Yeah.
Rises and in Porco Rosso. I think
Yeah.
because those are not just ordinary films; those are historical films. They have a historical context, so the smoking makes sense. But yeah, in more of his movies that take place in either fantastical settings or modern day settings, you don't see smoking as much, especially the ones that are geared more towards children.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would say The Wind Rises, Porco Rosso are not as geared towards children, but this one clearly is, and it actually has a lot of violence and scenes like smoking compared to, My Neighbor Totoro, which is very much for kids as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just so weird. And the use of language is different too. And they swear a lot.
Oh yeah. I like you compared it to just kind of American cartoons during this time because it does kind of just have that goofy slapstick comedy vibe. Most of the funny scenes is them getting hurt, which I feel like is a very American Tom and Jerry thing. Like you're just laughing at the characters being dumb and hurting themselves. And then just also the crazy situations they get themselves into. So, yeah, I definitely see that and I also listen to it in dub. I couldn't even find a sub. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I cannot either. I watch it on YouTube.
YouTube. Yeah, I rented it on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
So there's our recommendation if you want to watch it. It's like I think $3 to rent on YouTube for
Hmm.
4 weeks or something. So yeah.
Yeah. So, what else do you notice about the word building? Do you have any?
So, this is more to do with just Miyazaki's artistry in general, but
Hmm.
I feel like it's cool to see how far he's come just as a creative director and an artist in general. The beginning credits scene, the art, the color, the setting, it was just so cool and it was very vibrant and stylized. And going back along with the fact that Lupin is this, source material that multiple directors and artists have used, it's kind of cool to see that Miyazaki tries to put his own spin on it in a certain way to showcase his uniqueness as a director. Um, he does a good job at making it feel like it's his own. I feel especially through the way he illustrates the castle, because to me that's just some very Ghibli Miyazaki illustration right there. It's the detail and the rendering of the castle and all of the nature and the courtyard and the flowers. Don't even get me started on that chandelier. That was the chandelier in the castle is so detailed.
Yeah, I like that part too. I feel like the beauty of nature still illustrate very well in this movie. So, and that's why I love this movie so much, I think. And besides of that, there's one more detail that I noticed in the movie that make it very Miyazaki is the way he illustrate the characters. Because
Yeah.
even though it's borrowed from another artist and other people work, it still somehow reflects like the very characteristic that Miyazaki made for his characters. So yeah, I feel it's very unique, especially
Yeah.
for Clarice.
I think absolutely. Yeah, Clarice looks a lot like Nausicaa. Me and Betty were talking about that before we sat down to discuss. Her haircut is the same colored hair, and she kind of has a similar attitude at certain points, but at the same time, she's very much a damsel in distress trope. And so to me, that's where I see less of Miyazaki's influence and more of just the source material and Miyazaki trying to stay true to it. Because we know that Miyazaki's very well known for having strong female protagonists. And Clarice in here, she's okay. I kind of see what elements he did put into her that I do think comes from him. She has a whole conversation with, I believe he's a gardener. I don't know if you remember their conversation, but it was talking about, I think, I'm trying to remember. It was, our mutual love of nature created a strong bond between us. Her and the gardener, that's how they became friends because nature bonded them. I was like, wow, that was a very Miyazaki statement. And it just kind of came out of nowhere. It had nothing to do with the plot. So to me, that was just Miyazaki trying to incorporate his own little, like, I like nature, just like moment
Mm-hmm.
into it. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see why you're talking about that, but I have a little defense for my girl Clarice, but we will talk about it later when
Okay,
we
yeah.
discuss about the characters more. So, for the word building, do you have any other thing you want to say?
I did write just about how the whole idea of this clash between kind of like this spy vibe and then also this medieval vibe because it's like a castle and she's a princess and her wedding dress looks very medieval to me. Yeah, it's like modern spies and they have the technology to sedate her. Like it just once again reminds me of Castle in the Sky or Nausicaa, just all these movies we've seen lately where they really intertwine themes of different time periods, different cultures, different genres. Because Nausicaa was like this sci-fi, fantasy, apocalyptic hybrid, and then Castle in the Sky was, kind of felt like early 20th century, but it was also futuristic. And so here you get another weird combination of like kind of like this medieval European feel, but then also like Japanese spies also going on. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just interesting and yeah, I don't know, it just reminded me of both Castle in the Sky and Nausicaa, especially the whole idea of the prophecy. Count Cagliostro, he's like, it's our destiny to be wed or whatever, and that their family's divided. That was very Castle in the Sky to me.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. It's absolutely what I saw. Based on my notes here as well, I mentioned the scenes where they do the wedding because it looks so weird. It reminds me of some like dark theme, like witchcraft for some reason. Because the way
Yeah.
people dressed, it's so weird. Not
Yeah.
the bride and the groom, but just like the people who arrange it. I don't know, but the costume is very weird, like some witch
Are you talking
type
about
of
the
thing.
Count's outfit? Cause
Yeah,
he
probably.
does look weird. He has like a masquerade mask on.
Yeah.
It's kind of Phantom of the Opera
Yeah.
ish. I don't know. It's such a weird like genre blend to me. This doesn't make as much sense as the way he blends genres in other movies, but you do kind of see like how he grows as an artist and where these ideas came from. He's obviously always someone that kind of is multifaceted. Is that a word? I don't know. Like in the sense of wanting to combine different elements and different genres. And like Clarice being a princess locked in the tower and asleep, like that is so like princess fairy tale trope.
Mhm.
However, it's a modern spin because she's been sedated. She's not under a magic spell. She's under a strong sedative. And it's and then she's also locked up in this tower guarded by an evil villain. But instead of like a dragon or something, it's just some man that's committing financial fraud or whatever is going on,
Mhm.
counterfeit money.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because it's talking more about the devil inside of you, not like a physical one. So that's why I don't know. I tried to search up for like what style is that for the wedding, but it didn't
Yeah,
pop up. But it just gave me about like the gothic style, very dark, very
gothic.
yeah,
Yeah.
very mysterious. But yeah,
It could make sense. It's kind of like, Tudor England. Do you know
yeah,
about that? Yeah, it's just like it's got a royal theme going on. We're in a castle, but it's like dark royals and it's like conspiracies.
yeah.
And then it connects it on an international level, which that I think that's the interesting part is the globalization in the movie because real Tudor like monarch time, that was not we were not there yet as a society to where we were engaging in like where counterfeit money would even be a problem. Like that's a
Hmm.
modern society problem. So it's like these modern problems, but this like old contextual vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's a weird combination in this movie. So yeah, I think that's what I got so far. Most of them just remind me, or I found it parallel very well with Castle in the Sky, but mostly it's about the power and politics that it portray in the movie. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I could see that a lot. Also, our villain, he's a very classic villain, and we talked in Castle in the Sky about how what was his name? What was the villain?
Muska.
Muska. Muska was like our first real villain where he's not a morally gray character. Like Lady Eboshi, I was talking recently to my roommate about just that. I think Lady Eboshi was such a good villain because she wasn't pure evil. You could see and sympathize with her in certain ways and you could appreciate certain aspects of her, but she still made bad decisions. Whereas Lupin III, our villain, as well as Castle in the Sky, that villain, they're just evil. Like there's no redeeming qualities. They're just evil.
Yeah, they don't have legit motives for
Yeah.
what they want to
They
do.
just want power.
Yeah, it's just so random.
Yeah, pretty much. Also, he's already making tons of money. So it's like, why do you also need access to like this ancient treasure or whatever, which we find out just ends up being an ancient Roman city that's underwater? He
Hmm.
already has enough power. He really doesn't need it. He's fine.
Yeah, it just made me wonder, like, does he know about that? Like, that he's,
Yeah, because they seemed surprised that that was the treasure when they
yeah,
discovered it at the end.
cause maybe like Castle in the Sky, they just think that the treasure, like the physical treasures, like golds and stuff, will be up here if
Yeah.
the ring just joined.
Hmm.
But in this one, just more about the legacy things.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. I think also in that one, Muska, he knew that there was riches up there, but he was more concerned with just having a monopoly on the technology of Laputa because he wanted to take over the world. Like he was crazy on a whole nother level. Whereas Count Cal Calgary, oh my gosh, Cagliostro, this name is gonna get me during this episode. But his motives are even more unclear than Muska, because Muska, we just know that he wanted power and he wanted to take over the world. Whereas the Count here, it's like, what does he want? He just wants to be rich, I guess, but he's already rich.
Yeah, he already had power because
Yeah.
of his family.
So it's
Like,
like, what else does he want? And I think he was just wanted more power, I guess. I don't know.
no idea.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't have any more about the worst building because yeah, I feel like this movie doesn't have a lot of thing for me to say for some reason, but yeah, it's just more about compare how Miyazaki art style just changed over time. So
Yeah, my themes are like all over the place. I didn't even put world building. I just have elements of Miyazaki's artistry, so like areas where I saw future references, like how Clarice's design looks like Nausicaa. And then we have so many classic trope reference and then source material references. Then I wrote a little bit about Lupin's character. Did you at
yeah,
all? Okay,
I
we can
do.
talk about that.
Yeah, okay. So as we all know, Lupin is not like made by Miyazaki, but I feel like the way the character is built and like his emotion or like yeah emotional expression he made gave a lot of vibe of like male characters that Miyazaki made,
Yeah.
like very gentleman and stuff. But yeah,
To
I don't know.
me, okay, maybe this will be a hot opinion. I didn't like him. I thought he was annoying and rude. I think he's like a bad Porco Rosso, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
because he's like Porco Rosso in the sense of, he's a part of a time period, so he has these misogynistic views, and both of them are womanizers, but I think the difference is that Porco, by the end of the film, is really trying to be a better person, and we have these main characters that are female in Porco Rosso that really prove to him that he needs to stop underestimating women. We see that through Theo and Gina, and so we know he cares for them and he appreciates them. Whereas Lupin here, I don't know, to me, he's just a womanizer. I don't really see him gaining any level of respect for women throughout the film. It's not really touched on. He's constantly just kind of like a little flirt. Um, I don't know, maybe my opinion's too harsh. What did you
No,
think?
I think it makes sense, but for me just not like not that bad because he doesn't have any behavior that to like humiliate or
Yeah,
make the women feel bad about their role. It just like I don't know, it just doesn't have any motivation for feminism to happen like in
yeah,
Porco Rosso.
yeah. I,
So
I
yeah.
agree with that. That is kind of a downside to this film, is that
Yeah.
it's misogynistic, but then there's also no kind of challenge against that status quo like we get in Porco Rosso. I think the reason I really don't like him, because you're right, he didn't really display outwardly uh I don't know, like misogynistic actions. It was just more of his words.
Mhm.
I think his words honestly bothered me more than his actions, maybe. I don't know. Because yeah, he does end up saving her, but his motives for saving her are kind of unclear. It seems more related to him trying to find the treasure, especially at first, and then all of a sudden he's like, "No, it's actually because I just want to save her." And it's like, well, that's not what you were saying 5 minutes ago in the film, but okay. Um,
Mhm.
and then I really hate this quote whenever they're at, I don't know if they were like at a bar or restaurant, and the waitress is like, "Oh, the count has a bad reputation as a womanizer," and he says, "So do I," and
Right.
then he starts
Yeah.
being a little weirdo. I just thought he was weird, and I was writing very harsh language about him in my notes. I was like, why is he such a weirdo? Why is his Riz working on Clarice? Because his game is awful. I don't. I'm like, girl, don't fall for it.
Yeah, no, it's very hard to talk about this character because for me, I'm confused too. I don't know what what make him to. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, what make him to trying to save Clarice? Is it just because of the treasure, like you said, or what happening? But the more I watch it, I think it's more about the gratitude he has for her
For
because she
saving
saved.
her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she saved him once, but it's just
So
unclear.
it's more, yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that, but then that would make it more about an oath, which once again shows that he doesn't really. It has nothing really to do with her. Just the fact that she happened to save him when she was 9. And let's talk about that age difference for a moment. Like 10 years,
Yeah.
may not seem that bad when you're both adults, but when you met when one of the persons were 9, little weird, little weird. Giving once again Porco Rosso, Vio and Porco's relationship was very weird.
Yeah.
Um, we had a whole discussion about that and like the Lolita trope, which I don't know how Japanese that trope gets, because Lolita, like the actual trope that we're referencing, comes from American film culture, I believe. So I don't know, but just questionable. Questionable age gaps.
Yeah, I have no idea about that part too. The age the age gap. It's just something very weird in the older movie. Because I know the culture sometimes is weird because of the ancient culture where you have to marry like somebody at the very early age in
Hmm.
Asia culture. But yeah, it just it's just weird when we have some modern mindset applied to this movie that make
Yeah.
their relationship just like weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, it's like I feel like you can even see this in American westerns, like cowboy movies. Like it's this little damsel in distress kind of situation, and maybe this older, usually disgruntled figure saves her, and then it's like a little puppy that just wants to follow him around.
Hmm.
But I think I'm tired of that trope, to be quite honest, because
Yeah.
I just don't think it's necessary anymore. And I think that's why I'm glad that Miyazaki in his other films he explores more feministic themes.
Yeah. I'm glad of that too. And yeah, as I say, I don't know. I make a note here like he make their relationship clear, but what the more you said and the more I thought about what I watch, it's not as clear as like I thought. Because I think his action when Clarice she's I don't know what she want to do, but she want to try to kiss him, and that part is just so weird. And instead of like taking advantage of her, I think a little bit just like being very gentleman when he just kissed her in the forehead, even though I don't know what it's for, but
Yeah, it's
yeah,
kind
it
of
just
daughterly or
yeah,
sibling like
it's just
yeah.
weird. I don't know.
I think I will say I appreciate his actions towards her at the end of the film because he goes away. He
Mhm.
gets out of her life. Because honestly, I agree with that. And he says to her, like, no, go live your life. You're young. Like, don't stay hung up on me. Because honestly, this girl was trying to throw away everything for him. She was like, I'll become a thief if I have to. I just to me, I was so baffled. I was like, "Come on, Clarice. Like you have a life ahead of you. You don't need this man. You've just inherited some like ancient Roman city. That's cool. You know, go do something with that." Uh
Yeah, no, it's just so weird. And it gave me a vibe like she doesn't know what love is. Because in
yeah.
fact, when she met two of the co-workers of Lupin, and she just say, I love you, thank you so much for saving me.
Yeah.
And the guy was just like so weird, like,
They're
do
like,
you know what
"Okay."
you're saying? I don't know.
You know, it could also be because Cagliostro, it's its own sovereign nation. It's fictionalized, obviously, but it seems to be set in Italy, was my understanding of it. So, I mean, it could also just be a cultural difference because we've actually experienced this in real life where some Asian cultures are a little just not as affectionate as some Western cultures, like Italy specifically. They're pretty affectionate from what I know.
Hmm.
Like, you know, they'll greet each other and kiss on both cheeks. So maybe that was her being naive about love, but maybe that was also her just being very affectionate and friendly because of her culture. So I don't know. Could
Yeah,
kind of be both.
maybe. That's interesting,
Yeah.
Yeah, I never know about that.
But I do see her being naive. I think I really wish, I don't mean to be so harsh about Clarice's character, but I just wish there was some more dimension. But in general, I would say that most of the characters in this film didn't have the usual dimension and complexity that we're used to seeing in other Miyazaki films.
Yeah. For Chloris, I don't have any harsh comment about her, even though her appearance may be so weak and fragile. But I can feel at some part that she is very brave and independent as
Yeah.
other female characters that Miyazaki built too. Like at the very beginning of the movie, she drove like a crazy
Oh yeah.
person just to escape the Cagliostro gangs, and she also found Cagliostro to save Lupin in the castle. And
Yeah.
damn,
Where she was like shielding him with her body. Yeah.
yeah,
That was
he
sweet.
just and she just like being hit by Cagliostro so hard, like that part.
Also, to go back to her driving habits, that reminded me of Sosuke's mom in Ponyo, because that woman, Lisa, she drove crazy that whole movie. That reminded me of that. But
Yeah, no, I feel the connection here.
yeah, I okay, I agree. I do think Clarice has some qualities where it's like, oh, she's showing bravery or she's being independent in whatever way. I think it's more of her reaction and behavior towards Lupin, where I'm just kind of like, eye roll a little bit.
Yeah.
But maybe it has a lot to do with her naivete, and she is young, and she saved him when she was little, and so she probably kind of has this like idealized attachment to him, you know, like the mysterious man that she helped when she was young. So it's, you know, it's probably something like that. Also, we're not entirely clear on like what her childhood has been like, what her growing up has been like in general. So we're just missing. I think that's where the depth that we want is missing. Like that's where the gaping hole is that we don't really know how she grew up from that point when she first met Lupin to where she is now. We don't really see that development. But something I did really like that she said is when they uncover the Roman city, all this wealth should not belong to one person. It is a treasure for all of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Yeah.
definitely that reminded me. She reminds me of what was her name? Sheeta in Castle in the Sky. That quote reminded me of that a lot. Because
Yeah.
I feel like Sheeta had the kind of same attitude. She was like, you know, everyone should be able to appreciate this, or no one should. That was kind of her attitude as well, I think.
Yeah. I like that part too. And yeah, that's all I have about Clarice. And for Lupin, I'm just a little bit confused when I go through one of his quote when he said at the time he met Clarice when she was just like 9 years old.
Yeah.
He just mentioned like if I was going to die, I was glad it was in the presence of such innocence. So I don't know what does he mean when he mentioned that. Like he just like being like guilty or stuff, or just like reflecting on his childhood that doesn't have a chance to be innocent like that, or what happening here?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was thinking on a very surface level. I just thought he was this disgruntled, like kind of he's 19 at this time, I think, right? So he's just kind of like this lost youth that has turned to violence and crime, obviously. And so I kind of thought it had to do with that he's just been committing a lot of sins. He's been doing a lot of bad stuff. And so he's just like, oh, like to think that this innocent child would show me, he's kind of been acting like a villain because he's been stealing and doing all these illegal things, sympathy.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of thought it had to do with that. But I don't know. We don't know Lupin's childhood.
Yeah.
I think something that is missing for me and Betty here is that I believe the Japanese audience that would have been watching this film at the time were already familiar with the source material, I would imagine. Because sometimes the way they reference things in characters in the film is like we're supposed to like be in on something, like we're already supposed to know them. Especially like when the inspector pulls up or the woman of
Yeah,
Fuji.
Fujiko.
Yeah,
Fujiko, yeah.
I'm gonna just say Fuji because I think that's was her nickname in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you know, they just kind of pop up out of nowhere, no explanation, so it gives this feeling like we're just already supposed to know who they are. You know?
Yes, it gave me a vibe like when I first watching Avengers series. Like I
Oh
had to
yeah,
know like all the
Marvel.
characters in like this whole universe
Yeah,
to make connection with that. And I think
yeah,
Lupin the Third have its all series.
yeah.
So maybe yeah,
No, I
that's why
see
we
that
have
here.
a lost reference here.
It's, I mean, especially because it's based off of a longstanding manga. This is a manga adaptation
Yeah.
into a film, so you would think that a lot of the fans of the film were people that were reading the manga. Yeah, he's not starting from scratch here. You're supposed to already kind of know what's up and what's going on, who these characters are.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I think that's kind of the psychological depth that we're missing is because we're just already expected to know.
Yeah, that's right. I think you're right. I'm still confused about the samurai character. I don't know what he do in the movie. He just showed up and watching everything.
Which character?
The samurai.
Oh yeah, what was his name? Did you
It's
write it down?
Gomon. I wrote it down, but I don't know how to
Should we
say
just call him Samurai Guy?
it. Just like
He was
Goemon.
cool. The one with the samurai sword.
Yeah, he looks cool. I don't know
Yeah,
what his
no.
part or his role in the movie.
Okay, but you're so right. It was funny though whenever he was holding the sword and he cut Lupin's burning clothes off of him in like one like swing, and then he just
Yeah.
fell into the car like naked basically. That was funny.
It's so funny. Yeah.
But back to Lupin's character. I would just say where I do see he has redeemable qualities, he just really gave me a nasty impression from the beginning. Because I feel like here's the difference: is that for me, Porco Rosso, going into that film, he is a morally great character, and he is misogynistic, a lot like Lupin. So to me, I'm kind of thinking, what's the difference? Why do I like Porco and I don't like Lupin? I think it's because when we're introduced to Porco, we know all about his like deep-rooted trauma, and so it makes it to where you can sympathize with him, even though he's kind of not always a great guy, right? But I feel like because we see that he has these sides to him and he has this trauma he's been dealing with, we're more likely to, feel bad for him. And also he does have a character arc and he does get better. Whereas Lupin, like, seemingly we don't know anything about if he's gone through trauma, what his motivations are. He just seems to be stealing because he likes to steal. Like, they never explain why he wants to be a criminal.
Yeah.
So it makes it hard for me to kind of justify his attitude. And he's so big-headed. And I maybe that's just a personal pet peeve of mine. I hate people that are so arrogant. He says things like, "At least I have found a challenge worthy of my talent." I was like, oh my god, get over yourself. Or my intuition never fails me. Like, he's just so full of himself. It just made me mad.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. So yeah, I don't have any like good or even bad impression about Lupin. It just he just there, and I made another connection with another character from another anime movie that I watched. It's in the series of Case Closed or Detective Conan. There's a character. It's also an international thief, but the motive that he become a thief is very clear. That he wants to find the treasure of his family that lost somewhere. So it's very clear that he become like a thief to steal jewelries,
Yeah.
and it's very clear. And I think I'm biased because he's handsome though, and he know how to
Yeah.
do magic, and that's why I don't know.
Lupin's kind of funny looking. We talked about it a little bit. We don't want to be too man. Or too sorry, what was that even? Too mean, sorry, about his appearance, but he's just a little silly looking. I'm gonna just leave it at that. His sideburns are kind of funny looking. And his hair in general, I don't know, but I love the design of his comrade, the one with the hat over his eyes, like you never see his face, and he just always has the cig in his mouth. I liked his attitude. He was just giving like bounty hunter. See, to me, honestly, tell me why I would have enjoyed him being the main character more than Lupin. I just thought Lupin was acting like a silly little kid. Like, he jokes around, he never seems to take anything seriously. And then I agree with you that maybe if we knew his motive, then I would be able to reconcile something.
Yeah,
He's
be
just
there.
being a villain for no reason, apparently.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you can't set up the story like, okay, he's this guy that has no respect, obviously, for other people because he's just stealing from businesses. Even if he is honorable in some instances, we know that he is a thief for a living, so he is not always the good guy in every situation. And so to start off the movie like that and then try to portray him as someone that's like, oh, I'm gonna save this damsel in distress, like, it just seems out of character because you didn't really build up his character at all. And he's like, I live for adventure. And what does he say? This is the kind of adventure I've wanted my whole life, which to me, that kind of reminds me, Betty and I take a class, which is about like medieval culture and literature, mostly French literature. And it reminds me of this knight Yvain, who in the beginning of his knightly exploits, like he just goes out seeking adventure for adventure's sake, and he has no real heart in it. And to me, that is Lupin. Like, he's just doing it just to do it, it feels like.
Yeah. It's basically just to show off for me.
Yeah, I'm such a Lupin hater in this episode. I'm
I
sorry.
don't blame you.
I'm sorry, the people that like Lupin out there.
Yeah.
I just don't like this version of him, at least.
Yeah, probably. I wish we have more reference or context.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, talking about Lupin, because he's a protagonist in this movie, there's one scene make me a little bit shocked because I I always believed that like the hero in an older time would be just like immortal, like nothing can harm them. But at the scene
Oh,
where
yeah.
Lupin was shot, I was like, is it real or just like he's
How did he
overreact?
How did he heal from that in like
Yeah.
3 days? Like, that was kind of
Just by eating.
just by eating. Literally,
That's so
no,
weird.
I don't know. See, to me, that just kind of brings back the fact that this is very much a children's movie, and it's children's logic, and it's children's comedy, so maybe that's why I sound so bitter. I just didn't enjoy it as much as maybe I wanted to. I mean, I did think some of the jokes were funny.
No, I
Like,
enjoyed a joke here, but
I
not like.
I like the beginning whenever they're like, "Where did you idiots learn how to drive?" And then the car falls apart right after that.
No, that's so funny. Some part. Yeah. So, do you have any other thing to talk about Lupin or Clarice? Or we can move to the main theme of the movie.
What is the main theme?
For me, I think it's just about power and politics for some reason.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I wrote down some international themes, I guess, about like the politics going on.
Maybe
What did you pick up on?
I have no idea. Just very it's the movie is very random. I don't know what to talk about, but I draw some parallel like comparisons between this movie and Castle in the Sky, like the power motives that make the villains try to dominate the world.
Yeah.
But like we mentioned, Cagliostro doesn't have a clear one.
Nobody has a motive in this film.
Yeah.
Nobody.
I just wrote here like Cagliostro wanted political marriage just to get a ring from Clarice. Question mark.
Wait, you know what I just realized? Okay, there is one character that I genuinely like in this film, and I felt he had character development.
Who?
Do you know who I'm thinking of? I feel like you know. Do you know? Are we on the same brainwave right now?
I don't think so.
Oh, no, we're
like
not. Okay.
the inspector.
The inspector. Yeah, he's the only one that has any sort of character development and clear motive. So his initial motive is just that he's very dedicated and loyal to his government, and they've sent him to go catch this, international thief that's particularly plaguing Japan, was my understanding. So that is his motive. But then you see the character development when he actually decides to treat Lupin like a person and work together to stop the even bigger villain, which is the Count. To me, I was like, character development. And then at the end, when he's talking to Clarice and he's like, oh, he stole your heart, I'll go get him. Like, that ending to me was good because it was kind of like, how Batman and the Joker, they're always just going to be chasing each other at the end of the day. Tom and Jerry, they're always going to be chasing each other at the end of the day.
Mhm.
So he still had character development, but he's still going to stick by his guns, which is that he is the law, and Lupin is breaking the law. So even though he can compromise his values at some point to work together, he's still going to stay true to his mission. So, yeah, I just went on a little spiel, but
No,
he
it's
was
okay.
the one character I liked.
I love the inspector. What his name?
I just called him the inspector.
Nizigata? I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, the inspector. I love him so much. Like at the park where Fuji just pretend to be the reporter to like
Yeah, that
bring
was
the media.
hilarious.
Yeah, bring the media to help him discover the facts between the counterfeit money.
Yeah.
That part.
And he was being so sarcastic. He was like, oh, look what's down here.
Yeah.
These make fake money. Who would have thought?
Yeah, it's just like, wow, I was running after Wolf and look what I found. I was
Yeah,
like,
he's
"That's
so over
funny."
the top with it. And then like the government or whatever, I think they were called Interpol, which I'm thinking it's like an international like sort of spy organization or something, and they were just they were annoyed with him. His
Yeah, that's
sarcastic
so funny.
self. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen this might be a reference that you don't know, but do you know what Carmen Sandiego is?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's similar. It's a old like spy kind of situation, but it's a woman named Carmen, and it was based on a video game. And it would be like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Because she would like go all over the globe to like do these heists and capers and stuff. But I think she was like motivated by I don't know. Her motives were better from what I saw. Lupin seems to just stealing just to steal. So I'm like, I don't know. Carmen Sandiego, is she better than Lupin? I don't know. I'm not trying to start that big of a discourse, but
Okay, question mark here.
yeah. But I
Go
don't know.
back
Just
later.
random reference.
Yeah. Yeah, and where did I left off? Yeah, about Cagliostro.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I agree with you. He doesn't have any clear motive because he already gained his power thanks to his business of counterfeit money, like from generations.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it just made me annoy some part when the evidence of the money just shown up by the inspector. Those people in the politics bodies or whatever it's called, I
Yeah,
don't
that
know.
conference they have.
Yeah, they just didn't believe in Cagliostro crime and withdrew the inspector from the case because
Yeah.
it just like it knows what it is.
Half of them were bought, I believe, like, they were being paid by
I
him,
think
so,
so,
like,
yeah.
corrupt government was definitely kind of a small theme here. Or
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say small, like, it was the underlying theme. They just never, like, go out and say, "Corrupt government." They don't say that words, but it's clear what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny when they were arguing at one point, and they were like, "The American CIA is behind it."
Yeah, I
Because
remember that
yeah, because
part.
like, growing up watching Western cartoons, I don't really remember any cartoons I watched where they would reference, like, global politics, at least not as outwardly as they do in this film. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kinda interesting to think that, like, Japanese children, like, in their cartoons, there would just be, like, regular, like, political references. Because I don't remember that in my cartoons as a child, or if they were there, maybe I just didn't get them. I kinda wonder if Japanese kids, like, they'll see that reference and be like, "Oh, yeah, those Americans." Like, I don't know.
I don't know either, but yeah, that's something question mark there. Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, I have a quote. It's very random. I don't know why I put it there, but it's just saying like the word is at his mercy, and
Oh,
after that
yeah.
he just like giving some historical reference of the ruin of the Bourbon dynasty,
Mm.
and then the Great Depressions. But the year is just weird. But I look up it's
Oh,
in the
yeah.
period of the Great Depressions.
The
So
Great Depression reference was actually the Great Depression is horrible, like, the reality of it, but the reference was funny
mm-hmm.
because and they were basically saying that the Count single-handedly caused the depression. And printing counterfeit money was what caused the depression. I was like, "What?" Like, what did they just I don't know, I just wasn't expecting that, especially because 'cause I'm used to Miyazaki's other films where they're a lot more historically accurate. If they're gonna comment on, like, global, political, historical things, he tries to be a little more accurate. So, like, in The Wind Rises, we actually see the panic and the bank closures, whereas in this one, it's entirely fictionalized that this, like, random man has single-handedly sent the entire world into depression. And I just think that's kind of insane to
Mm-hmm.
imagine.
Yeah, I think they just want to like blow it up so that it show like how powerful or how like yeah, powerful
And
the Cagliostro
how
is.
deep his pockets run because he's paying off all these people.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah. I like that, the fact that he is a real villain, I think makes it so funny to discuss because it's just like, how is this one man doing all of that?
I know, right? And it just passed on by generation.
I
I don't know what
know. No
happened.
one noticed. Well, I mean, apparently Lupin did, but that was, like, what, 10 years prior, and then he
Yeah.
failed epically, essentially.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
those assassins were scary. They had, like, just, like, sharp hands. Have you seen Hunter x Hunter?
Yes.
Okay, it was giving Kill a Wall. Like, its
Yes.
fingernails are just sharp.
Oh my god. Yeah,
This is
that's
a
so
goofy
creepy.
discussion, but this movie was goofy, so I don't know what to say.
Yeah, for real. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I just make a note here, like I feel like it represent the dark future that happened
Oh.
with Sam in the
Dang.
castle in the sky if
Yeah.
Musca took over it. But I don't feel like
Yeah.
Musca will be like as evil as Cagliostro because he already had a foundation of everything. But Musca, he just by himself and know a little bit
Yeah.
about the historical context of his family. So yeah.
They're like different fonts of evil because Cagliostro, he has this whole thing where he's like, I'm gonna unite our divided family. Like, he doesn't actually care about the heritage or the culture. He just wants the treasure, right? And I feel like Muska kind of does a similar thing, but it's just it's in a slightly different context because he also shares like the same cultural familial ties with Cheetah, and he's like, we're the two legitimate heirs. So you kind of see that crossover, but I kind of feel like Muska cares a little bit more about the culture than or his heritage than Cagliostro does. Or maybe that's just me. Because I did feel like Muska took pride in like being the legitimate heir. I feel like Cagliostro just saw it as a means to an end, like to get the treasure. I think Muska had a little more like heritage pride in it. Just
Yes,
maybe.
as a Laputan resident, like the
Yeah.
powerful thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
feel that.
that
Yeah.
little more cultural depth, whereas here he's just like I don't know. He acknowledges that it's a part of his culture, but he doesn't really seem to care. He just wants the treasure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And we gotta talk about his death scene for a moment. Cause did it
Yes.
chop off his head? Cause oh my gosh.
I have no
I was
idea
like,
what
this is a
happened.
children's movie, so they didn't show it. But it, you know
It's
how he
like,
was like stuck
yeah, and then
between.
it collapsed everything. I have no
So
idea.
I feel like it's cut off his head, and I was just like, wow.
Oh.
But yeah, I think that's why they didn't show it, because obviously that would have been too graphic for a kids movie, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, and if it show up, I didn't show really surprised because we can see a lot of like violent scene in Princess Mononoke where the hand is just like
That's
immediately
true.
cut off. But yeah.
Princess Mononoke is a lot more adult focused though. Like this
Mhm.
movie's way more childish, so that's why I think I was so surprised to see that. But he didn't show it, and I think that was
Yeah.
intentional. Um
I think so. But
it
yeah.
because this to me was kind of like Scooby-Doo. In a sense, like it was like this big mystery. And you have these villains that are scary, but whenever they die or something happens, you never see it. It's always off camera. That's kind of how Scooby-Doo was too.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you with that. And yeah, at the ending scene, I just found out a connection with Laputa for the power of destruction. It just like I don't know, it's just very unclear than what happened in Castle in the Sky. But in this one, it just fit all the idea like evil destroy itself.
I liked that quote. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, like what happened with the castle, like why it is going to be destroyed just to show up the ancient Rome city
It
under
it
it.
seems something to do with the aqueducts. They had to like break the aqueducts so that water would stop flowing in to the basin or wherever the city was underneath. And so
Oh.
it like drained like a pool or something. I don't know. It had to do with the aqueducts.
Yeah.
But I thought that part was probably the most interesting aspect of the film was the hidden city, because this whole time they're hyping the treasure up like it's going to be this big vault of gold, kind of like Castle in the Sky, where all the government the military people were just like, raiding all the treasures. But in this case it's just more of about this like rich historical site, which I think is really cool. And it just kind of really speaks to Miyazaki's interest in capturing like these fallen civilizations, because something me and Betty were talking about a lot earlier, and we'll get into more when we talk about Miyazaki as a person, but he really seems to like this continuity theme of no matter how bad it gets, and it gets bad, and he shows that that there's always hope that we can just keep moving and do better. And so I feel like he shows that a lot in these films with these fallen civilizations where it seems destroyed, yet there's potential to rebuild after destruction. And I feel like that's kind of what we see with this ancient Roman city, is that it's fallen from its peak of when it was at its top, but it's been given over to Clarice, and she's going to be able to do something with it, which I think is kind of the point. So even after human beings and the environment cause the destruction of something or a civilization, you can always rebuild. And I like that. I think that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that idea. Yeah. Okay, I don't have anything else to say about this movie because I don't know, it's just very random and short for me, but it's like
Yeah.
very entertaining.
Yeah, it was entertaining. Most of the time in my notes, I was just writing LOL. I feel like normally I have like something more profound to say, but really just the civilization comment I feel like is the main piece of analysis I got out of here. Most of it was just kind of for fun and for jokes. I
Hmm.
liked the scene, just another silly scene. Whenever they're like pretending to be spirits at the wedding to scare them.
Yeah, no, that part is so funny.
Because also, like, the way he did it, because he's, like, speaking through the ring, I think, or something. He, like, did something to it to where he could,
Hmm.
like, talk through it. And it kind of makes it seem like God is, like, well, the bishop seems to think it's the devil. It's, like, talking to them and being like, I do not ordain this wedding. And then, like, the cross gets knocked over, and it's just super dramatic.
Yeah, I like that part, but I kind of something guess the priest just like Lupin because I don't know, it's just like an old motive that he going to cavalry somebody, so why not somebody who very close to those couples?
Oh yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I 100% sure that's him. But yeah, it's just easy to guess.
It
But it's
was
entertaining, yeah.
it was kind of wild when they had the dummy version of him get speared by all the assassins, cuz it obviously wasn't him. Like the moment he got stabbed, like beyond where I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's not going to survive." I was like, that can't be him then, cuz they're not going to kill him off.
Yeah.
But just imagine the horror on Clarice's face. Like, cuz honestly, imagine seeing that in person, cuz the dummy looked real.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me that was just kind of shocking. I was just like like, I don't know, I was just at a loss of words, and I was like, okay. That was violent. Yeah, there's kind of
Yeah, that
like we said,
violence.
there's a lot of violence in this movie. I think Miyazaki's later kid movies that he makes like I don't know, I would say maybe after the 90s, lot less violence.
Yeah, he makes it more like a metaphor rather than
Yeah,
like a physical thing we see. So yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so do you have any other thing to say?
We can just do our rankings now.
Okay. So how would you rank it?
I mean, it was just kind of like a little silly kids film. I don't know, like I think I'm gonna give it 2.5 out of 5 just because I gave Totoro a 3 out of 5, I think, and I want it lower than Totoro for sure. So probably, what about you?
I rank it 3/5 because I feel like I still found it very funny. It's old, but somehow gold for me. So yeah, I enjoy the details of the movie, but to analyze it, there's not much thing to say about it. It's just like a silly
Yeah.
childish movie for kid. So I was like, yeah, but I have fun with it, so I just give it 3.
That's a good rating. You know, I just hated the main character so much that it was a little less enjoyable. I mean, I watched it this morning, guys, not even gonna lie. So I didn't even like watch it way in advance since I was just eating this morning watching it, and I was like, this dude just like the whole time, and my notes were terrible. I normally take much better notes, but this movie just had me like rolling my eyes, so I would just like write "bruh" in my notes.
I don't blame you.
It was a little
I feel
silly.
so much, yeah. Okay, so this is our last episode talking about Miyazaki's movie, and for me, just like a bittersweet moment because I cannot believe we go this far, and I'm so happy
Yeah.
because of that.
Me too.
And yeah, I'm very like appreciate any interesting thoughts from my co-host Avery and some of our guests Sarah and Ryan. There's not here, but thank you so much. And we have not done yet, so look back on
Yeah.
all the movie we covered this year. How would you like rank it? Which one is your favorite movie?
Okay, so we could like do it in chunks. So why don't we both reveal our should we start at the bottom and then go to the top of our rankings? Okay. So I'll start with 10 through I guess like should we go by we could do like top 10 and then top 5, top 3. How does that sound?
Yeah, sure.
So I'll say the ones that are outside of my top 5 but are within my top 10. If that makes sense. I'll just go.
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
just
yeah,
I'll
you
just
just
start
give the
talking and
example.
maybe I'll make sense. Okay. Yeah, I worded that so weirdly. So I didn't put the Castle of Cagliostro on my rating, by the way, because I didn't watch it until this morning. I would put that one at 11th place. We've seen 11 films so far, and that one just wasn't super notable. It was fun, but it was very much an introductory film just to Miyazaki and his career. So for 10, I put My Neighbor Totoro, which I felt bad about putting it there because 10 feels so low, but it's also just because all of these films are so good, first of all, so it made it really hard to decide. And also because we have not watched all Ghibli films yet. These are just, we've only done, it's crazy, we've only done 11 films, but that's also a lot
Yeah.
at the same time. But yeah, so I put My Neighbor Totoro, just because it is a slower paced film and it is really for children. And I think I don't have that nostalgic buy-in that other people have because I did not watch it as a child. So I think that's probably why I put it there. What did you put as your 10th spot? Or 11th
So
and 10th?
11, it's this movie,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Because I don't know, it just doesn't have any deep meaning that I want to actually dig into it.
Yeah.
But yeah. And my 10 one is Kiki's Delivery Service. I
Mhm.
enjoyed the movie, but it just it just lame. It just there.
It's
I'm so
lame.
sorry, but yeah, I don't know, but it doesn't like
That's
stay
okay.
with me that much.
That's totally fine. So,
Yeah, so that's my 10. And have you said your 9 yet?
I can say my 9,
Yeah.
because it's Kiki's Delivery Service.
Oh.
So I'm assuming you switched. For 9, you put My Neighbor Totoro?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so we're just switched. We probably both ranked them low because they're the slice of life films. They're slower paced, not as much plot, and I mean, we both see some like thematic exploration or character development in both of them, but it's always nicer when you get that combined with some interesting plot.
Yeah.
Like House, I think, is gonna be one of the perfect examples of a blend of good thematic and character exploration, but also an interesting, engaging storyline. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I really liked Kiki's Delivery Service. With the themes that were chosen to discuss, it's very much a coming of age. It's also about kind of trying to find how you can survive in the world and, maintain some sort of form of living because she
Mhm.
has to go out and make money.
Yeah, find a balance.
Yeah, so kind of just that the uncertainty of being a young adult and having to go into the world and be independent, but you don't know how, and then getting disillusioned with the reality you find.
Yeah.
Very, very relatable. But then also at the same time, the story's dry, the ending is eh. She saves homeboy. I don't even remember his name, Tombo, whatever. But yeah. So what did you put for, or do you want to talk about My Neighbor Totoro? Why you put that one as 9?
Yeah, it's my childhood movie, but I don't know. I just feel it's just there. It's in my past.
It's just
So
there.
it just yeah, it just sometimes give me nostalgic vibe when I rewatch it, but it's not like in my top because if
Mhm.
I really want to watch something from Miyazaki's movie, I wouldn't choose this one except for when
Yeah.
I watch with the kid.
Pretty much.
So
I would
yeah,
agree with that. Yeah, what did you put for 8?
I put Porco Rosso. Even though I know it's a little biased for me because I didn't watch it like fully.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I just put it there because it's the movie that I least focus on
That's fair.
among other things. So yeah, I just put it there for now. I might re-rank it
That's
in the
fair.
future.
Yeah, so for mine, and I feel bad putting it here because all of these movies were so good. I genuinely enjoyed all of these movies, but I put Castle in the Sky, just because I think it didn't hold my attention as much as the other films that I've ranked higher than it. I really enjoyed it. It covers really good themes, but at the same time, I think other movies cover those same themes better. Because in Castle in the Sky, we're talking about a lot about the environment and technology, and then also violence. And to me, I would say Nausicaa of the Wind and Valley and also Princess Mononoke cover similar themes, but I think those movies are better. So that's why I ranked it this low, but I did really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And also having a two-dimensional villain is not my favorite thing. I kind of like someone like Lady Eboshi, where it's a little more complicated, you know?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, that's fair. So my 7 rank is Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind. I
Mhm.
think because of this one, I rank it lower than Castle in the Sky. Castle in the Sky is my 6th one.
Mhm.
I didn't switch it because in Nausicaa, even though the theme is very well building and I enjoy like every messages implied in the movie, I'm just it just because of my phobia.
The
Yeah,
triphobia
it
thing.
just make
Yeah.
me less focused on the movie and I was like
That's
I don't want to
that's completely
continue.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
just like
understand.
yeah. So I put it lower than Castle in the Sky. Castle in the Sky, I love that because it mentioned a lot about current like the foundation of current situation when we dealing with some AI stuff.
Yeah.
So I do feel that in like how it's affect human being life and how it will then affect how we feel about nature or environment. Who knows, maybe. So yeah, I feel like I yeah connect very well with the robots in the movie, and I love them. So yeah,
I like that. I think definitely I'm not as into AI or technology, so maybe that's why you enjoyed something like that while I enjoyed Nausicaa more. because I love environmental themes more than I like technological themes. So
Yeah.
I think Nausicaa had more environmental focus than Castle in the Sky did, but it was definitely there. But for my 7th and 6th, I put Spirited Away and then Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. I really like Spirited Away, and maybe I ranked it so low just because that was the first movie we did, so it's not really at the forefront of my mind anymore. But I really like Spirited Away. It's always gonna be like just a classic Ghibli film that I can watch again and again. But I've just discovered so much more Ghibli films this year that I've never seen before, and they were so just enchanting. I think I'm always gonna love Spirited Away because that's the film that got me into Ghibli. But now that I've watched other ones, it's no longer at the top of my list. But I really do like it, and I relate a lot with Chihiro. I also think that the themes in Spirited Away are just not as appealing to me as some of the other ones. Because Spirited Away doesn't really deal with the environment at all. It's more about kind of like Chihiro's own personal growth and story. But yeah, and so I put Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind as 6th. And I said I might switch it with my 5th place, which is Porco Rosso.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Nausicaa. I liked her as a main character. I love seeing female representation in sci-fi movies because I feel like that's not something that we get a lot. And also, just as someone that likes to read, I read a lot of dystopians in science fiction novels, and so many of them are written by men about men or boys, like the protagonists are male. And then when I do see a sci-fi or dystopian where it is a female protagonist, it's the way they're written is just so it just feels two-dimensional. And then even some of the popular ones, like, I don't know, Hunger Games. I don't know, to me, Nausicaa, like, they don't even hold a candle to Nausicaa. I feel like Nausicaa is just such a strong female character, and she happens to be written by a man. So I don't know, good job, Miyazaki, for doing some good sci-fi representation for women. That makes me very happy, but that was my long little spiel, but
I enjoy it. Okay, so my 5th one for you is about Porco Rosso, right?
yeah, my 5th one is Porco Rosso.
Okay, yeah. So do you want to mention about
Yeah,
that first?
sure.
So that, yeah.
Yeah, I put Porco Rosso as 5, and I said I might switch it with Nausicaa. I don't know. I kind of think I'm tied with them, so if I could put both at 5, I would. I just really liked Porco Rosso. It might be the history major in me. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it more than you, because it just had so much historical references, and it was taking place in a certain time, and I really like questions about, like, identity and how that fits in with your nation, especially when you don't agree with what your government is doing. And we see that in Porco Rosso and also The Wind Rises. And I think to me, Porco Rosso was such a foundational film. After we watched that one, anytime we watched any other film, I could make comparisons back to Porco Rosso. So it definitely stuck with me. So I kind of just went with my intuition and ranked it there. I don't know if it was as entertaining as the other films, but it was just so memorable for me that I had to rank it in my top 5.
Yeah, that's fair. For me, my 5th one is Ponyo.
Ponyo!
I love Ponyo, and I feel like it's a very good movie to just like show your imaginary plan as a kid. So it's kind of
Yeah.
nostalgic for me as a kid just to watch this movie. But it's also like show how Miyazaki tried to create a foundation for any kids who watch this movie to care more about water pollutions.
Yeah.
Because it's mostly talking about like how people polluted the sea and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And I love the sea. I love the sea so much. I love everything related to blue theme, and that's why I love the sea and sky so much.
Aw.
So that's why this movie in my 5th, like yeah, I
I'm,
rank it
I,
in my 5.
now I gotta know, what is your 4th? Because I'm curious. What did you put above Ponyo?
Spirit Away,
Spirited
because
Away.
this one more related to how I'm trying to figure out who I am
Yeah.
in the theme of name. So I put
Yeah.
it like beyond the my love for the sea.
That's a good
So
that
yeah.
I love that reasoning. That's great. I put Ponyo as my 4th, so ours are pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
I same reasons as you, honestly. I would say just a little bit more about what I really appreciate about Ponyo is that imaginative realism, because the way that the movie incorporates both like fantastical elements and spiritual elements. We kind of have like Panya's mother's a sea goddess and she's a goldfish princess, and so kind of we have these magical elements, but then it's also very realistic. And you talk about the theme of pollution and stuff like that. I really like that mix. I made it a very fun movie to watch visually, and to me that is probably the most nostalgic Ghibli movie I've seen. I think I said Spirited Away got me into Ghibli. I would say that like in my later life, but Ponyo was one that I saw as a child. So Ponyo was like one of that's my neighbor Totoro. That's the one I watched when I was little. So I just will always have that connection to it. And I think the relationship between Ponyo and Sosuke is just so pure. And I love themes about just being kinder human beings to each other, because I really feel like that's what we're missing from this world in society, is just being nicer and being more compassionate. And I think Sosuke and Ponyo are like the perfect example of being able to reconcile that you come from different backgrounds, but you can still get along,
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do feel that. That's why I do some research paper over this one.
Over Ponyo?
Yeah, I think like Ponyo will be a good foundation for children to not only focus on the environmental issues, but also like how to grow up as a kind person. Because the way Sosuke acts to the animals, like marine animals and other people, just like motivate the kids to do the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like
He's
that
so
movie's so
gentle
good.
and considerate, and he's so sweet with the old ladies.
Yeah,
Love it. Yeah.
I love it so much.
All right. Are we in the top 3 now?
Yes.
Okay. So we should recap our list. Okay. So far, My Neighbor, or I keep forgetting the Castle of Cagliostro. It's not even really on my list. My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service, Castle in the Sky, Spirited Away, Nausicaa, Porco, and Ponyo. What do you have so far?
I have Castle of Cagliostro, Kiki's Delivery Service, My Neighbor Totoro, Porco Rosso, Nausicaa, Castle in the Sky, and Ponyo and Spirit Away. Okay.
We're gonna have the same top 3 then. Just what order?
Yes.
Okay, you go first. What's your third?
My third one is The Wind Rises.
My third one is also The Wind Rises.
Okay.
So we can talk about
We're on
that.
the same page.
Yeah.
So The Wind Rises is my top 3 because I'm just like I dream a lot. Like I dream a lot of things. So I love like the way Miyazaki just like illustrate the beauty of the dream, but also like the other side. If the dream doesn't come true, what will happen and how you deal with reality.
Yeah.
So I love that theme in The Wind Rises. So that's why I rank it like on the very top 3 of
I
this
agree.
movie.
I think being young adults now and not little children, because
Yeah.
Ponyo and My Neighbor Totoro are very like foundational and inspirational when you're a child, but when you get older you see more of yourself in The Wind Rises, I think, because it is more adult and it's following an actual adult and his struggles in maintaining like his aspirations, but also needing a career, and then also the social pressure, like, oh, I should get married at this age, and just trying to balance all of the nuances of living life.
Yeah.
It can be overwhelming, and then once again, the history major in me, there's so much historical depth to this film. And then when we get to discuss Miyazaki's life later, I think his own like input, like he really poured his soul into this movie, and I think that's what makes it so good. There's so much in this film that comes from his life, and to me, I feel like that's what makes it so amazing. I think this is why it's one of his best films. It's because it's so personal.
Because it's having some emotional appealing into this movie.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just so good.
For sure.
Yeah. So my top 2 is Princess Mononoke. Because I believe you switch with me for that part. Yeah, I put Princess Mononoke here because I feel like Princess Mononoke have a very strong message for the environment and how to preserve the wildlife space and also the forest in the future. So I really enjoyed the movie. I love every scene, every message in the movie. But I rank it lower than House Moving Castle because I feel like House Moving Castle connect with me more like directly and more tired. entire to my personal experience with everything I've been through in my life. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just like a psychological aspect that got me that we have a lot of things to go through and how to deal with fear and why fear is your curse. Like, it reflects on what you fear and how you have to deal with it to get away
Yeah.
from it. So I love the idea how it's portrayed that in the movie. So just like, yeah, it's always my top one whenever I rewatch it, no matter what. It's still
Yeah.
there.
See, for me, it's so hard because once again, I'm a very indecisive person, so my ranking could change by literally tomorrow or this night. I kind of House Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke. They're both excellent films to me. It was really hard to rank it, but I did put Princess Mononoke higher than House Moving Castle, and I think it's just thematically I may have connected with the film more. But House Moving Castle emotionally is probably one of those films that you connect to the most. Like, wow, my sentence did not make sense. You emotionally connect to House so much, like anyone. It makes you feel vulnerable, and I think it's because like the fears and the worries and just the psychology of the characters are very universal things that everybody struggles with at some point in time. You may not literally be cursed to appear as an old lady like Sophie, but I'm sure one or two people listening right now has dealt with some form of just insecurity or even body dysmorphia. And so, like, I mean, the themes that are explored in House can be universalized, I think, to just any kind of human experience. And I think that's what makes it just such a great Ghibli film, and it connects with so many people. So many people say that House is their favorite movie. I would say it's probably one of the most popular Ghibli movies, maybe outside of, I think Spirited Away was probably pretty up there too. Uh, but yeah, I really like it too. I did put Princess Mononoke first. I think for me, it was just he didn't shy away, Miyazaki. He didn't shy away from the difficult themes he covered in the film, and so I enjoyed that. And then also, I really liked our villain. I really liked Lady Eboshi. I will say in House Moving Castle, I guess the villain might be kind of the Witch of the Waste is a villain. Solomon is a villain. You kind of just have multiple people, but there's not really like a strong, like unified villain. Like this one person is the bad guy. And in Princess Mononoke, I do feel like having that figurehead be Lady Eboshi nuances the film because you kind of actually get to explore why she is the way she is, and she's presented not even originally as a villain. At first, she's just the person that takes Ashitaka into her village. So I don't know. To me, I enjoy the nuance, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I feel like Lady Obushi just like the villain that make you feel like your previous opinions about something is right. So that's you why you have to like fight for it. But for Lady Suluma, I feel like she has to be a villain to make you feel like that's your fear. You have to deal with it. So it's like a
Yeah.
motive to face with what you are afraid of.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like House Moving Castle got me so much. Like, there's somebody have to be like the villain in your life to make you realize like you have to do something with
Yeah, to
this.
change.
Yeah.
I also feel like House, when it comes to talking about the villains is really less about a physical person, but more about their own inner demons. And so that does make it like an amazing film on a psychological level. So I'm surprised I actually wouldn't rate that one higher because I do also study psychology. But to me, I don't know. There's just something about Princess Mononoke that's really stuck with me since we've watched it.
Yeah, it's
so
okay.
I don't know.
We
Yeah.
can rank it well, the first one because it's so hard for me to decide too.
Yeah,
I
it
don't know.
is.
Yeah.
I was really also stuck between Porco Rosso and Nausicaa of the Wind and Valley because they both give top 5 energy to me, but I could only fit one. So I had to choose, and I chose Porco. But I honestly, the more I think about it, I want to switch it. I don't know. They're all great. They're all great. I guess that's the point.
Yeah. Okay, so we rank all of them. So would you like to talk about the great animator producer, like
Whoa.
so many titles for him?
Oh yeah.
Or yeah,
Hayao
awesome
Miyazaki.
Miyazaki.
That was chaotic. But yeah, so I'm going to present a little timeline, and then Betty has a lot of interesting details and facts that we can go into in more detail and discuss. But I'll just present kind of like a general timeline. So Hayao Miyazaki, he is a Japanese animator, director, producer, screenwriter, author, and manga artist. You know, the man,
So many
he
titles.
is the man of legends. He's amazing. He's also the co-founder of Studio Ghibli. So, just to talk a little bit about his early life, he was born January 5th, 1941, in Bunkyo City? Perhaps that's how you say it. Tokyo, Japan, of course. And so just some historical context that I find is relevant to his life is that, so he's born in 1941. World War II was going on at the time. That spanned it from 1939 to 1945. So he was kind of born right in the middle of it. And so as we know from World War II, one of the biggest incidents that relates to Japan is the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They were two non-combatant cities, and Miyazaki himself had to evacuate because of bombings. I don't think it wasn't those bombings specifically, but like some smaller bombings wherever he was living at the time. So he did have to evacuate and move around a few times as a young child, like 3 to 4 years old. So, and not to be a little psychology major for a second, but we do know that these are foundational years. So this is something that evidently had an effect on him, and we do see manifest in his work. So anyways, in Japan, following the war, you know, there was the occupation of Japan by foreign military presence, specifically America, United States, and a lot of social and economic reform came out of this. And then more about personal context for Miyazaki. His dad was the director of Miyazaki Airplane, which I think we've discussed a lot. That was a lot of his inspiration in Porco Rosso. So Miyazaki Airplane, they actually manufactured rudders for fighter planes in World War II, which I did not know that, but I thought that was interesting. And so he probably grew up with a pretty like stable life, you know, affluent enough, I would imagine, being the director of a whole airplane manufacturer industry. I don't know. But his dad also served in the Japanese Imperial Army. The reason I'm mentioning this is because he actually left. He left the army. He wanted to be at home with his wife and his children. And apparently the government kind of made some sort of, or not the government, the army, I guess, made some sort of comment and lectured him about like being disloyal, which I would imagine that probably stuck with him too. And that again reminds me of Porco Rosso because he has similar treatment for wanting to leave the Navy, the Italian Navy. And so outside of that, we know that he didn't have the best relationship with his dad, and we'll probably talk about more about that later. And then about his mom. So his mom was actually in and out of the hospital with spinal tuberculosis since he was young. From about 1947 to 1955, she was kind of regularly in and out of the hospital. So, that was a big impact on him as well. And I looked up a little bit about his mom. She's described as just like this intellectual but strict woman who questioned socially accepted norms, which I don't entirely know what that means. It's a very vague statement, but it doesn't surprise me because I feel like Miyazaki is not one to shy away from maybe controversial opinions. But concerning his career, so like just growing up, he was a big movie animation buff, especially when he was in junior high. Uh, and then later, he watched Panda in the Magic Serpent in 1958, and this was Japan's first feature-length animation film in color. And this film had a big impact on him. He really liked this female protagonist, whose name I'm gonna attempt to say correctly, Ba Nyang.
Probably.
I think I said it so wrong. I'm so sorry. But he was really inspired by her being like this strong female protagonist, which I was like, this makes sense. Miyazaki does a lot of strong female protagonists. But anyways, he attended Gak- Gakushan University. Where he studied politics or in the economics, I believe, and he majored in Japanese industrial theory, which is a very specific major, but that's cool. He was also in a children's research literature club, which I just thought was interesting because it's kind of his introduction maybe to making content for children, I would imagine. And then he was really into manga, and he wrote his own manga. He wrote so many, a lot of them he didn't even publish or finish. Uh, but in 1963, he went to work for Toei Animation, and he became the chief animator of The Great Adventures of, I don't even know what I wrote there. House, I can't even read my handwriting. Prince of the Sun, 1968. And he worked on this with a mentor of his, Yasai. What is my handwriting? I don't know what that says. Futsuka? Okay, but also he and the director of this film was Isao Takahata, who would co-found Studio Ghibli with him later. So I just pointed that out. Um, and so Miyazaki left Toei Animation in 1971, and he made Lupin III, not the one we just watched, but another one. So I think he made 2 Lupin movies. I don't know. But this one was co-directed with Takahata. And then he later goes to work for Telecom Animation in 1979, and that's when he makes the Castle of Cagliostro. So he makes that Lupin the Third movie. He resigns from that company in 1982. Homie's just moving around a lot. And then he kind of just goes back and forth between working on anime projects and working on manga. Eventually, he does the manga for Nausicaa, which was from February 1982 to March of 1994. And he adapted it into a animation with Topcraft Animation, which is a smaller animation company. And he made it with Takahata himself, of course. And then Joe Yashi did the soundtrack for that. And something I just found while researching was that Nausicaa may have or may not have been influenced by, there was this incident of mercury poisoning at Minamata Bay. So it seemed that was kind of the inspiration there with the toxicity of the jungle and everything. But yeah, that's kind of the basic timeline.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. That's cover most of the thing I researched as well. I don't have a lot of comment. It's just one little detail I found in the year of 1963 when Miyazaki just took like a position of like an animator at Toei Animation. It just like I feel like this timeline just brought him a new foundation for his career path as an animator because he's also met his co-founder of Studio Ghibli, Takahata Isao here, and yeah, they just become friend, coworker, and then co-founder of Studio Ghibli later on. And it's just a little romantic pic here, but he also met his wife here at the
Aw.
animation forum. He met Oto Akemi, who was his lifelong friend and collaborator, business partner. And then after 1 year of courtship, she became his wife. So
Courtship.
yeah.
He was courting her.
Yeah, I don't know what
Oh,
happened after that, but yeah, he met his wife there. And yeah, after that, he worked on just several projects of the Wolf Boy Can and also Takahata first feature directory debut. I don't know if you mentioned this part.
which one?
The debut of Takahata's movie.
No, which one was that one called? Was that the...
Yeah, it's the Little Norse Prince.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, I had The Great Adventure of House Prince of the Sun. I don't think that's the same thing. So yeah, no, I didn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
that.
So it just like first Takahata, the co-founder of Studio
Mhm.
Ghibli, debuted his movie, and Miyazaki
Oh,
just helped him as a
okay.
small part on that movie. And yeah, after leaving the Toei, Miyazaki and Takahata just like collaborate to create Studio Ghibli. After several other movies he made, including the movie we just discussed, like Lupin the Third. So yeah, after Nausicaa is published, they finally founded Studio Ghibli in 1985, just 1 year after. And yeah, I feel like everything just went so smoothly, like a foundation and support for him to build up like who he become today.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know, it just like make me feel about my future somehow. Like how should I build up these experience to add up to
I will
my
say you can kind of see the instability and like wandering like young adult experience that I think everyone has because you know in the beginning he's just this guy that's really into movies and he's like, you know, I guess I got to go to college, and then he decides to study political economy and Japanese industrial theory, like, you know, that kind of, I mean, it relates to what his content covers, but you know, you would imagine him to major in film or something, you know, or in art. But no, like he takes on a very different major than his career ends up dealing with. So I think it's interesting. I do think there was a time where he didn't really know where he was gonna end up or what he was gonna do. And he kind of just, you know, got involved with some projects and the rest was history, is what it seems like.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's just kind of like a snowballing
Yeah, yeah.
thing. But I would imagine at first that he probably shared a lot of disillusionment that Kiki or even Jiro in The Wind Rises did. You know, just kind
Mhm.
of that instability of being a young adult and not knowing what to do with your life.
Yeah, just bring his life into his products. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was I don't know. So I don't have a lot of things to say, but I found some interesting fact about his artist career.
Hmm.
So it's just mostly about The Wind Rises and his connection with his real life. So there's one particular quote from Horikoshi, who is the main inspire figure that Miyazaki used to build the character Jiro.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's inspired to the adaptation of the engineer's life. So the quote is, "All I wanted to do is to make something beautiful." So it gets like a singular focus that Miyazaki shares about the roles and expectation and form that in his life and everything people accept, like yeah, everything people expect from the creators and their work can be just pushed aside in the pursuit of like beautiful, and Miyazaki just like make it so well in his
Yeah.
movie. Like he romanticize everything but not like make it too dreamy to
Mhm.
being taken to your perception. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but yeah.
No, you're good. I
Yeah, it's just like
I agree. Yeah.
it's just so hard to get it away from your life because it's a part of your life, like what happening in the
Yeah.
movie. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think The Wind Rises is, as we were talking, just one of his most like heartfelt films. There's so much of his personal life and I think experiences in the movie, which is, yeah. And earlier when I kind of talked about the historical context versus the personal context, to me, The Wind Rises has both of those, and I think that's what makes it so strong. Is that it does have that pre or what's it interwar period of Japan, so you see those elements. Um, and the instability that comes with that and just kind of the general fear and anxiety that society had, but then also you kind of see, you know, the connection with himself in an artist like Jiro views himself as an artist, and then you also see Miyazaki's connection with his dad with the airplanes and everything, and then even his mother, because to me I kind of wondered to a certain extent if The Wind Rises was Miyazaki's kind of like imaginative retelling of his mom and dad, because his dad, you know, worked with planes and his mom was this very smart woman, but she was also very ill. And those are our two characters in The Wind Rises, essentially, except they don't have kids. So to me, it's kind of this maybe fictionalized like understanding of what the relationship maybe could have been like. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right at some part because Miyazaki decided to make this movie because he's found a very strong connection with the real Horikoshi storyline. It's just like the Japan is just like being destroyed right now, and I cannot do anything but blame the military, like the way he did
Yeah.
exactly with the plan. And yeah, it's just more about the internal struggle that doesn't lend itself like to sweeping all the romance or all the like slice of life stuff
Hmm.
in the movie just like away. It just I don't know. I think it's reflect very well with his childhood, like what you mentioned with his
Yeah.
dad and his mom. It's just like a little bittersweet moment between the two.
I agree. I feel like The Wind Rises and then My Neighbor Totoro are like the two where we see the most insight into his personal life. The Wind Rises I think is more of like an adult perspective looking back. Whereas I think My Neighbor Totoro is very much through his own inner child lens, like the lens of his inner child. Um, because as we discussed that his mom had spinal tuberculosis and was kind of in and out of the hospital, and then sometimes she just had to stay at home and have someone care for her at the house. We see that very clearly in My Neighbor Totoro, where the two little girls and the dad got to move out to the country to visit the mom at the hospital. What I find interesting there, which Betty and me kind of already talked about this before filming, so this will be me repeating it for her, but I wonder to what extent, like, how present Miyazaki's dad was during the periods that his mom was very sick, because a lot of our research showed that he didn't have the best relationship or understanding with his dad. They just didn't seem to see eye to eye on a lot of things. But Miyazaki also talks about how he feels a little responsible, like that maybe he should have tried to have those deeper, bigger conversations with his dad. And, we get a very different type of just listening to Miyazaki talk about his dad in that way versus the dad we see in My Neighbor Totoro. I'm like, that can't be the same guy. Can't imagine that dad was inspired by Miyazaki's real dad, which originally I kind of just thought it was. But now that I think about it, I think My Neighbor Totoro is what Miyazaki wanted his childhood to be like a little bit. I think he wanted that father figure that, would the same way he taught Mei and Sasuke?
Sasuke.
Sasuke. I was like, what is her name? Sasuke, how to just be brave and be kids even while they're going through some traumatic stuff because the mother is sick. I kind of wonder if that was him projecting what he wanted as a child. I don't know. And we also talked about whenever we first covered My Neighbor Totoro, how he originally was going to do it about two brothers, but then he changed it to two sisters because the material was just hitting too close to home for him. So, very, very emotional film, and I think there's a lot there as well.
Yeah. So it's just like if you know the story behind the movie, you just always have some emotional appealing included to your experience with the movie. And I do like one quote I I mentioned that to Avery before, but I just repeat myself. It's just like the way people create their arts just reflect what they lost in their real life. And I feel that happened a lot in Miyazaki's movie because I don't know. I found some meme like of Miyazaki just mentioned like how the word is just like not as great as it used to be, but he just there just keep going on and just like so sad somehow. Like I don't know how this guy feel like through his childhood with some of these trauma and stuff. It
Yeah.
just yeah, just so sad.
Yeah, no, and that's another thing we talked about is that in his older age or just whenever you look up Miyazaki quotes, so many of them are nihilistic. It's just very depressing. And it's interesting because when we watch these Ghibli films, that's not the impression we are given at all. Don't get me wrong, we can the films cover super deep and serious topics, but I would say for the most part the energy is usually pretty light, and at least by the ending there's some sort of optimistic or at least hopeful ending to where it's like, okay, well, all this stuff happened, but life continues on. You just keep going, you keep growing. But then when you read like some of what Miyazaki is saying in real life, it's like this man sounds like he has no hope. So it's kind of interesting the way he incorporates so much of that into the film. And I wonder if this has kind of like been just a change as he's gotten older, and if we'll see maybe a more darker nihilistic theme in his new movie that's coming out this summer, How Do You Live? Or if we're going to get that continued kind of like hopeful optimism at the end of the movie or not. Because that's what we're used to, but I'm not sure if we're going to get it this time. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, that's something we looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like Miyazaki have a very sad and I don't want to say dark, but it's somehow dark experience like with everything every event he went through. But some of the quote I found from him just also give like a optimistic vibe, but that just like how he want to give to others, not himself. There's one quote I found. It's just he just say like, "I want people to have fun. That's my motivation. It's because if I can entertain people, maybe I deserve to exist."
Oh my gosh. See, it's like he's a optimistic nihilist, which I don't even know if that can exist. I don't know if that contradicts each other, probably. Um, or he's like a optimistic realist. He acknowledges the reality and how it can be really grim and dark, but he still has hope, or some degree, at least. Another a quote I wrote down was he says, "When you die, you can't see sunsets." So it's got that morbid feel to it, but then there's like a spark of hope. He's like, unfortunately, I'm gonna die one day, but hey, I can see sunsets right now. It's a little off-putting, but it's to some people that might be comforting.
Yeah. Just like enjoy your moment right now. Live in the moment.
Live in the moment.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting because the title of this next film is "How Do You Live?"
Oh yeah.
In the moment, apparently, or that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Right. The more I like research more about his life and his motivation to make those movies, it just make me more curious about his latest movie.
I think we're
Upcoming.
predicting like the themes of it as we're talking right now, because I mean,
Yes.
just the fact that it's called "How Do You Live" and we're talking a lot about how Miyazaki views the world. I mean, we're probably going to see that perspective in the film, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Especially if it's about, like related to some of his personal life, like The Wind Rises and My Neighbor Totoro has been. And then the other film that I really wanted to emphasize, I feel so inspired by his personal life experiences, is Nausicaa. Because I think Nausicaa is very much just kind of like a foundational film for the themes Miyazaki wants to explore. Because there's themes of violence and, more of pacifism, also civilization, compassion, the environment, humans' relationship with the environment, all of that is very there. And then Nausicaa's world in general seems to resemble a world that has been totally annihilated by atomic bombs, which very much was the reality he grew up in. And so I really do feel like Nausicaa stems from more of the traumatic stuff that was happening not to just him as a child, but just all of Japan. Whereas My Neighbor Totoro in Wind Rises feels a little more specific to some of his personal context. To me, Nausicaa is exploring a much like broader experience that so many people have experienced in that country because of the consequence of those bombings. And that's just crazy to fathom.
Yeah, that's so insane.
The level of how much that impacts, or wait, the amount of people it impacts. I'm sorry, my words.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any other thing to say? I mostly just have his quote, and some of them just entertaining for me.
I have just two quotes. I have I have a little picture of him throwing up peace signs, which is super cute. So I'd recommend looking that up. Just Miyazaki peace signs, maybe. I don't know. But I had one where they were like, "Aren't you worried about the studio's future?" And I think it was in reference to Studio Ghibli. And he says, "The future is clear. It's going to fall apart. What's the use in worrying? It's inevitable." And that to me is the same vibe as the "when you die, you can't see sunsets." Like, he's like, it's probably gonna collapse, but let's enjoy it for the time being.
Yeah, no, it's so Miyazaki.
Yeah.
So yeah,
What cuts did you select?
I select the same as you and some of the thing I mentioned earlier. I have one more quote talking about his filmmaking decision. So he just say like, "I would like to make a film to tell children it's good to be alive."
Thank
So,
you,
yeah.
Miyazaki. Saving this generation from going off the edge.
Yeah. No, and I think Gen Z do need it. We facing so many depression for some like so random reason. So,
I mean, arguably it's not random. It's just this accumulation of trauma and horrific crimes by humanity. We're reaping what we sowed. Now I sound like Miyazaki. I'm taking on his optimistic nihilism. Can we call it that? I'm gonna just stick with that. Hopefully, I'm not misinterpreting what nihilism is.
no.
Do you know what nihilism means?
No, I just stick with you.
You're just letting me talk, and you're just like, yeah. No, I could be totally wrong.
I don't know.
Wait, can you Google nihilism?
Okay, it's loading. Okay, is that the rejection of all religious and moral principle in the belief of life is meaningless?
Oh. No, I don't think I knew what nihilism is.
Or do I search the wrong word?
No, that's right. I think I'm
Okay.
just dumb.
No, you're good.
I don't know what I meant. I don't know what I thought nihilism meant. It's okay. You guys know what I mean, right? He's an optimistic, depressed guy. Let's just go with that.
It's okay. It's okay. Sometimes we talk about something meaningless, but life is not meaningless, so it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Some other random quote that I found. I don't know what is the context going on here, but Miyazaki just say like, "But if you say why don't you quit?" I would say, "Shut up."
That's it.
Yeah.
Wait, read the one about anime.
Huh?
Do you have the one about anime?
No, I don't.
Oh my gosh. Miyazaki. Okay, wait. I think I know it off the top of my head. Miyazaki, this is like not even a significant quote. It's just funny. He says, all anime is trash except Sailor Moon.
I don't know why he loves Sailor Moon that much. I don't know what's happening.
No, literally. I'm like, he's a shoujo anime watcher? Like,
Hey, that makes sense because most of his movie about shoujo.
that is, hey, we just figured it out. It's because of his love for Sailor Moon.
Yeah. And I have another interesting quote about Miyazaki think about love.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he just said like I have become skeptical of the unwritten rule that just because a boy and a girl appear in the same feature, a romance must ensure happen. Rather, I want to portray a slightly different relationship, one where the two mutually inspire each other to leave. If I'm able to, then perhaps I will be closer to portraying the true expressions of love.
That's beautiful, and I feel like he does accomplish that in his films. And I think most Ghibli fans don't. But I feel like Ghibli fans are spitting on his message though, because we always be making fan art of like characters that aren't even supposed to have a romantic relationship. Like
I know,
Haku and
right?
Chihiro, they're children. Like it's not supposed to be romantic, but there's so much fan art about them. I feel like there is some Ghibli movies where it's clearly a romantic plot. Like Helen and Sophie, I'm not gonna try to argue that they're not in love in a romantic couple way, but to me, even like Ponyo and Sosuke, I'm like, it could be more about like just a platonic true love, you know?
Yeah.
They're children. Can we stop making weird fan art about them?
Yeah. Oh my god, I still remember somebody just make it like a dope picture.
No!
Of them just like I have no idea. But
Of Ponyo and Sosuke?
yeah, when they grow up.
No! Don't. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to wash my eyeballs. See, like, just let them love each other in a pure way. I mean, not that romantic love isn't pure, but not everything has to be about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm a romantic people. I love romance movie, but it doesn't have to be like romantic all the time. I love
Yeah.
other things too.
I think a good example of him accomplishing what he's talking about with like creating just a theme of love, and it's just like boundless unconditional love. It doesn't have to do with being romantically involved. Is probably Sin and Ashitaka, because they really develop such a good relationship together, and they clearly care for each other, and he likes her to a certain extent. You know, he calls her beautiful and he admires her, but at the end of the film they go their separate ways, and I actually really like that was the ending, because I think if Mononoke had been a Western film, it would have ended with them like getting together and like getting married or something, but instead it was like, you know, they just had like this love for each other that was like a mutual love that connected them through the environment as well. Their love for the environment made them also love each other, and then they just went their separate ways. And you know, it's kind of like you always know they're gonna love each other and they're always gonna be friends and have that connection, but they don't have to get married.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I love that because other movie about romance I watched during my childhood until now, it's just like the romance and the marriage is the closing of everything. It's like the happy ending of everything. But I didn't mean to say like marriage is bad or something, but it's just like not always that way.
Yeah, no, it's not. And we even see in the films that are about romance, or to a certain extent, like The Wind Rises has a romantic storyline between him and what is her name?
It's something.
It's something. It's something. Wait, I wrote it down. Jiro and Nahoko?
Yeah, no,
Nahoko. Yeah.
I heard something go.
Nahoko. Yeah, what was I gonna say? Yeah, Nahoko dies at the end of the film, so that's not, the happiest ending where it's like, oh, Cinderella, they're gonna go get married, the church bells are ringing. But like she ends up by saying, go live your life. And to me, even though their love was romantic because they were married and stuff, I think their love transcended just ordinary romance. She supported him as a being, like as a human being, as an individual. And just because she's passing away doesn't mean she doesn't want him to go out and enjoy life and love others and continue to experience love. So to me, even the ones that do have a romantic theme, he's still kind of showing this theme of universal love.
Yeah. And I love that ending. Instead of some of the horrible movie ending I watch, just say like, "Don't you ever forget me," even though I'm dead. I was like,
Yeah.
that's so toxic.
Toxic. Yeah. Oh, that
Yeah.
was kind of loud. Sorry, Mike.
Okay, I don't think I have anything else about Miyazaki. I just feel like his work is so awesome. I love all of his movie, and I'm excited for the movie this summer.
Yeah, this was a good last episode. We covered a lot. If you listened to this whole thing, thank you so much. If you've been listening to all of our content so far, thank you. And if you haven't, we recommend you go back and maybe listen to some. We have 11. It'll be 11 by the time this one is out. I think 11 different episodes.
I think it's 12 because
12?
House movie because of 2 parts.
Oh yeah, so we'll have 12 episodes.
Yeah,
If you
it's
want to check
pretty
that
numbered.
out. And some of ours were on YouTube, Spotify. But yeah, everything Betty said, this episode was kind of us just fangirling about Miyazaki, but that's fine. We love him. Or he's a little grumpy sometimes, but he's also an amazing dude. And he oh my gosh, I was about to make a Pitbull reference. I need to stop talking. It's been like you've been there, done that. But yeah, enough of our silly shenanigans, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Long semester.
Yeah. Well, I didn't believe like we go this far, so I'm very glad. Because when I first like launched this project with Avery, I was like, I don't know how long we she stick with it. Because
my God.
I don't think like we both have time to watch
Yeah.
all of them, But I'm glad, yeah.
We made it work, and we're very excited to bring more content next semester. We might rename and call it Beyond Miyazaki's World, because we will be going beyond and we'll be talking about other Studio Ghibli directors and creatives, such as Takahata, which we talked a lot about today. So stay tuned, we got lots more. Grave of the Fireflies, Whisper of the Heart, Arrietty. So,
yeah. Well, thank you so much for sticking with us until now. Yeah, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next season.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Have a good summer. Bye.
Bye.